Coaches, let's turn our attention for the next 10 minutes or so to Coach Mike Sotsky. He's the assistant coach at Harvard University. I've known Coach Sotsky since he was a freshman manager at Duke University. I work camp there every year, and I've seen him grow and develop year after year to where he is today. Talk about paying your dues. His climb up the ladder is what every young coach strives for. He went from manager to being the head manager his senior year in 2015 when Duke won the national championship that season, to joining Coach K's staff after graduation, to now having just completed his fourth season under Coach Tommy Amaker at Harvard, and also recently being named to Under Armour's 30 Under 30 team, which recognizes the top 30 college basketball coaches under the age of 30.
Kind of what is the goal for your defense, and then every decision that you make should be funneled through that. And so if you really think that keeping the ball out of the middle of the floor is the most important thing, then make that the main thing, and you should be icing side ball screens. I think less is more. I think if you play 6 zones, you're probably not good at any of them. I think that our game at this point, at the college level at least, is pretty overcoached and undertaught. I think we need to do a better job of teaching the principles and less trying to, put Band-Aids over wounds when things aren't going well. There's a lot of ways to be good. UVA, obviously, pack line, hedging ball screens, Texas Tech, no middle, ice, keep it on the side, West Virginia, Syracuse with their zone. Those are all very different teams, but they're all very good defensive teams. And so I don't think there is one way. I think you have to do what you believe in. You can't catch every raindrop. There's certain, if you're going to be a hyper aggressive trapping team, you're going to give up more layups and dunks and attempts at the rim than if you're going to be very conservative. Conversely, if you're very conservative, you're not going to turn teams over, and you're probably not going to, speed up the pace of play. And so you're not going to be good in every area of your defense. Kind of brings me back to the main thing, keeping that the main thing. And then the final thing I would say, and this leads me into the presentation, is be good at the things you do a lot. And I know it's probably sacrilegious for me as a Harvard assistant to be quoting a Princeton guy, but I believe in that, and I really think that's true. And so I'm going to show you 5 things that I would bet, regardless of what you do, whether you're a zone team, man team, I think you got to be good at these 5 things. And I think these are really important for your defense. The first one is transition. The stats and the analytics are clear on this. Opposing offenses are most efficient in the first 6 to 8 seconds of the shot clock. And so regardless of what you're doing defensively, defense is kind of what I call a keystone habit. Any books on habit structure, there are certain habits that when you kind of make them ingrained, they actually infiltrate and help you in other areas. If you commit to being an elite transition defense team, that's going to impact your offense. You can't take bad shots, and you can't have live ball turnovers and be an elite transition defense team. It'll also make your team in better shape. It'll coach effort, and it'll coach point and talk as you recover in transition. And then the final thing I'll say with this, and I'm spending the most time on this one because I think it is the most important. If you look at the top field goal percentage teams in the country this year, they're making, about 50% of their shots. And this is the top 3 teams. They also are turning the ball over on some of their possessions. In saying that, you are in transition defense for more than half of your defensive possessions. And I'd argue you're in transition defense even on some made baskets against teams that are really efficient. That's a lot. Be good at the things you do a lot. And then the question that I would ask with this section, what are your principles regarding offensive boards, defensive balance? How many guys do you send to the glass versus how many guys are getting back? Is it based on positioning on the floor? Who's where? Making sure you're organized with that. Defensive rebounding. The second shot is always a very efficient shot. That's usually the one that gets you. I put here, these are percentages of the top 3 defensive rebounding teams in the country by possession percentage, and then the bottom 3. So you see there's a massive gap here. And you're talking about in a college game, 65 shots or so being taken. There's a significant difference between rebounding 80% of those shots and rebounding 63% of those shots. And that's going to result in a significant difference in points, obviously, that you're giving up. And I would ask, when we as coaches think about defensive rebounding, a lot of times we think about our big guys. We've been most successful at Harvard when we've had perimeter defensive rebound. So having 5 guys on the boards, guards getting those kind of loose change deflection rebounds so that we're not giving up second chance points. Defending ball screens. The ball screen is for us the thing that we see the most at our level. Again, and my philosophy is starting to come through here a little bit, but I don't think you can switch up your ball screen coverage every game and be good at it. And so I think you have to take 2 to 3 coverages and get good at those. And I would say that your coverages have to align, again, with your philosophy, but then also your personnel. It would not make sense to hedge ball screens with the Lopez twins, right? And so they don't. And so you play a deep drop, and that becomes what you do, and you get good at it. There's 2 trends right now that I see, at least at the NBA level. And Richie, I hope you're right. I hope we do get games back soon. One is, the hyper aggressive kind of mode that the Raptors are in, which is extremely early help at the nail, even, from a player who's not involved with the actual ball screen itself. And then they are flying around and rotating, Xing out. And then the Bucks, who I just mentioned, are extremely conservative and play a deep drop. And then they don't do any switching, the Bucks. They stay with their men. They're very good pursuing the ball after the ball screen takes place, fighting over the top and trying to force long-range contested twos. My question for you, because it relates to the previous slide, how does your ball screen coverage impact your defensive rebounding? If you're an aggressive blitz hedge team, you will not be as good of a defensive rebounding team because you're getting your bigs further away from the basket. And so just to think about that, if that's something you're struggling with defensive rebounding, maybe keeping your big closer to the rim is one way to help with that. Guarding the ball, to me, this is the hardest thing to do in the game. And we work on it every day at Harvard. You're going to foul guys finishing around the rim, but you got to be diligent in showing the official your hands, using this clip with or picture with Kawhi, and not fouling the dribbler or the jump shooter. You end up guarding the ball in isolation, but also after action. So ball screen takes place, you do a good job of neutralizing it, and then now it breaks down into one-on-one or, which leads me into my final slide, kind of closeout defense. One question to consider with this, if you're struggling to guard the ball, then maybe you shouldn't be an on-the-line, up-the-line pressure man-to-man team because you're not showing help. You're not building a wall. You're not in gaps. And so just to think about, again, your defense, you should have alignment with whatever your main thing is. If you're trying to protect the rim, then maybe it doesn't make as much sense to be out contesting to half court. And then lastly, I referenced it, but closeouts and shot challenges. In the game today, we spend a lot of time in rotation and disadvantage situations, regardless of what defense you play. And so you're going to be closing out a lot. I think it's an essential skill, and I think it's important, again, whatever defense you play, that you keep an emphasis on challenging shots. Like every shot needs to be at least challenged. You're not going to be able to always have a perfect, whatever it is, but you have to challenge shots. And I would ask you at your levels, does it make more sense? I call it a high school closeout, which is the sprint 2/3, short choppy steps 1/3 that we all learned growing up. Or now with certain players, certainly, or even just in general, to run everybody off the line, to fly by guys on a closeout, guys or gals, obviously, and then you've got one plant push and get back in the play. I think there's some merit to that. Obviously, you're seeing that with certain teams at the NBA and the college level. I think that's an important skill to teach. I know I'm running out of time, so I'll just end with these 2 things. 2 questions maybe to start the discussion as we get into the breakout rooms. And these are things I'm thinking about. Like I'm trying to learn from you guys just as much. Maybe I've helped you, but what are your KPIs, meaning your key performance indicators on your defense? Like, are you maniacal about deflections? Are you maniacal about paint touches? What are those things? And one of the ones that's getting talked about a lot right now is, guarding the 3-point line and, 3-point attempts allowed. Like the 2 best defenses in the NBA right now are allowing the most threes. But what they're doing is they're giving those threes in a way that is still good for their defense. In other words, they're protecting the rim and they are not giving up inside out threes that are rhythm, step in, catch and shoot threes. They're giving up off the bounce threes. They're giving up rushed threes, contested run off the line, sidestep threes. So just to think about key performance indicators for your defense. And then I'm curious your guys' thoughts on 3-point defense in particular. And the last question for me, switching has become so common at the college level. And I think certainly at the professional level and probably at the high school and lower levels as well. Is it time to start zagging? In other words, everybody has sort of zigged to the switching and let's just switch 1 through 5 or switch 1 through 4. Well, when that happens, now offenses adapt and become more comfortable attacking that. And certainly coaches have spent the last 4 months figuring out how to combat switching. So is now maybe the time to switch away from switching, where we're going to be more personal accountability, stay with our man, and make teams beat us. And I guess what was previously a traditional way.
I went to a clinic, Brett Brown, and Sixers have like 7 different ways they guard ball screens. And I understand you can blitz, you can do this and that, but I really honed in on what you said about 2 to 3 ways, like limit and do things well. Is there ever a time where depending on who you're playing, obviously, and your team in particular, how you change things through the season at times? Or you just say, you know what, we're sticking to these 2 or 3 ways?
Yeah, it's a great question. So specific to the NBA thing, remember a couple things. Number one, those guys are pros. And so that's all they do. And so if they want to tweak their ball screen coverage from Wednesday to Thursday, they don't have to go to class.
Right.
They don't have to teach a high school course and then that's what they do. So I think that they're the smartest and best players in the world. So don't hold yourself, because I don't, to the standard of what all NBA teams can do. We should learn from the NBA because that's the best and the highest level. But it's a different game. The court's dimensions are literally different, the spacing. So just as a note with that. To answer your question directly, this year we iced on the side, hedged on top with our 5s, and then we switched 1 through 4. Those were our coverages. There were a handful of games where we did something different. When we played Siena at home, they have a kid, Jalen Pickett, who's on NBA draft boards. So we just decided to blitz every ball screen that he was in. And were we good at it? Not really. But we weren't doing it to be great. We were doing it to get them out of rhythm. So I think you do make some scouting tweaks. What I caution against, though, is not having a base. I think you need to have a base coverage on the side, a base coverage on top, and then you can tweak from there. Because the problem is, for example, and sorry, it's a long answer, but it's a great question. If you ice on the side, your off-ball players are going to get accustomed to the rotations, stunts, and movements that come with that.
Right.
So if you go then in the next game to hedging on the side, it's coming from the complete other side of the floor. So you're never training instincts, you're never training habits. So that's not to say that you won't make tweaks, but I think you have to have a base coverage because I think guys get better at it over time.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah.
Coach Sotsky.
Where are you? I know the voice. There you are.
I'm glad you recognized it. How do you guys teach running people off the line? Because I've found that to be a very tough thing to try to teach. It's not as important in high school as obviously it is at the D1 level. But obviously there are a couple of guys who can just knock down some shots. And we tried, just saying run them off the line. But how do you guys go about teaching that?
Yeah, so for us, we have one, and we've debated this, honestly, but we have one uniform way that we close out. And what we do is basically what I described earlier of sprint 2/3, short choppy 1/3, and then we really try to rely on our voice pressure to make guys think that we're out of control, but in reality, we know that we're going to, come up short. So very rarely, and we've talked about this, and this may be different next year, do we run guys off the line in the manner that you're describing, where we are going to fly by closeout and give up a straight line drive to the rim rather than giving a 3. We instead want to be the second leaper, if you've heard that term. So we want to be second one off the ground. We want to contest with a high hand. So that's kind of just what we've taught. If you are going to teach the flyby, the one thing I would add is the guy's got to get back in. So in other words, if it's that low hole help guy, ball gets skipped left wing, right corner, you got to fly. You're going at a 44% three-point shooter and you just want to jump and leap. I get that, and I think there's merit to that. And to be quite honest, in practice, our guys have done that, even though we haven't taught it. But you got to get back in the play because then so many times the rebound comes right back to the guy, especially because he knows you're out of the play.
Right.
So he'll follow a shot or whatever.
Yeah, thanks so much, Coach. I really appreciate it because, I mean, we do teach flyby. We've honestly probably faced like maybe 2 kids all year where we really had to worry about them shooting and being able to make a play going to the rim.
Yeah.
So we've been teaching flyby, but even then, those kids have killed us. So trying to come up with new ways.
And then the only downside with the flyby thing is just like guys then become undisciplined with it.
Right.
Or
exactly. We fouled 3-point shooters doing it.
Yeah. So it's a foul or even like it drives me crazy. It's not even a shot fake. It's just where the guy lifts his shoulders and I'm just going to recklessly, like, that's not what we're trying to do.
Definitely. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, man.
Always appreciative.
Do you guys have a philosophy in your like in press defense?
Meaning like what presses?
Like full court presses and in terms of spacing and what you're going to give up and what you won't give up and what you're looking to emphasize?
We're really big on initial position. So for us, we're a man-to-man team, almost exclusively. And so our biggest thing is shrinking the floor and what we call kind of splitting the difference. So if you're, the ball's getting inbounded and your man is standing 92 feet away from the ball, one of our biggest pet peeves is you just standing right next to him. Like split the difference. Like you should essentially be at half court showing your help so that whoever that guard is that has the ball has, he can't just blow by the on-ball defender and drive it 70 feet uncontested. Like you've got to take away space. So in all of our pressing stuff, we do that. We do a couple different presses. We'll sandwich the point guard if we're trying to deny it in. Occasionally we'll trap the first pass in, but we do more of our pressure stuff at half court, to be honest. Like we'll trap first pass to the sideline at times, and then we'll also trap the turn at half court at times. Those are 2 ways that we've had a pretty good bit of success with trying to up tempo and generate turnovers. And personally, I and Coach Amaker obviously is the one who does it, but we love doing that out of timeouts because in our league we play against teams that are very set play oriented. And so if their set starts with hit the wing corner cut, well, let's just go blitz that pass to the wing and get them out of whatever they were trying to do.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Coach, how you doing? Cabral Huff down here.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey, how much, this may be a loaded question, you guys do a leadership series up there at Harvard that you do with your guys. How does it help your guys with communication? Or do you feel that leadership series really helps your guys' communication when it comes to getting on the court?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things we talk about, it was actually, we were featured in a New York Times article, and the title of it was Education Through Athletics and Vice Versa. And so we do think there's a correlation there where guys are good students and it makes them better players. That there's just certain habits and skills, and that's kind of what we do as coaches anyway. Specific to communication, I think it starts in the locker room. Kind of the research on this, the term, the buzzword, whatever, is psychological safety. Meaning guys need to feel comfortable being themselves, because if they're not, then they won't feel that they can speak up. And that shows up in a lot of ways. That shows up in, one of the things we struggle with, like we coach really good guys, and so they don't like to hold their teammates accountable because they then go back to the dorm room and they want to play Xbox. And so they don't want to cuss him out, when he's not going hard in layup lines, because that's your boy. And so, how do we establish an environment where it's a culture of confrontation in a positive way? Coach K used to always say confrontation is meeting the truth head on. That's all it is. And so how do we get it to where that's acceptable? And then right now, to take it to a different level, and I hope this is answering your question a little bit, we've established an environment in our program where we can have conversations about systemic inequality, about racial injustice in this country. And so if you're a white player at Harvard basketball, black player, we've had these conversations for years. And so it's not like this is now something that we're just diving into. I'm saying that to say, if you're trying to get your team to communicate better in any way, whether that's your ball screen coverage or your deep relationships in the locker room, it starts with trust and it starts with safety, where guys feel like they can be themselves. Now, obviously, you have to have good guys in order to do that, but we've been fortunate, to have that and to be able to recruit guys like that. Does that help?
It does. It does. I appreciate it. I love your guys' leadership series, man. I'll try to take some pieces of that down with me.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share too, with you. Just email me, text me, whatever. Like some of the more specific things we do. Like one real quick. We call the Campus VIP program. So we pair each guy on our team with a VIP, so a dean, professor, administrator at the college, or even just a local restaurateur, someone that is involved with our program. We pair them. They go take a photo, meet for 5-10 minutes, form a relationship. So that now becomes instantly, when a guy arrives on campus as a first year, a contact and a resource that he has. And it's a relationship and it's a mentor, and we pair them with people, in their specific area of interest. So that's a way that we're teaching leadership, where it's not just us talking about pick and roll defense. It's Mason Forbes is paired with Cornell Brooks, who's the former chairman and CEO of the NAACP, because Mason's interested in issues surrounding social injustice and inequality. So being thoughtful about those off-court things is important too.
Listen, I wanted to ask, in up-tempo situations, let's say that you're under 2 minutes to go, and it's you're down 4 maybe, and do you guys do anything around utilizing the half-court line in your traps, or somehow trying to initiate the ball into areas that naturally they don't want to go?
So in other words, we're down 4 on defense, trying to create turnovers or tempo.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially mid-court areas, so that you're not getting right into a danger situation. You still got time to scramble.
Yeah, that's where almost certainly we will trap first pass to the wing or trap at half court. Like that's, and it depends on game situation. Like if it's a 4-point game and there's 2 minutes left, maybe we're not instantly thinking we need to do that because we trust our defense. We got 2 timeouts left. Let's just get a stop and a score. And that's all we're thinking about. But if it's, down 4, 55 seconds left, like we're not just going to let them bleed out 30 seconds. We're going to trap in some form or fashion. And for us, our trapping technique is real simple. It's 2 guys on the ball, 2 intercept guys on the ball. We say no splits, no fouls. The interceptors are trying to obviously, read his eyes in terms of where's the ball likely to go, take away most dangerous pass. And then the goaltender is basically just trying to take away layups or wide open threes. And then I'll say this, because I think this is an under-taught skill, and Coach Amaker is awesome with this: sprinting off the trap. So whenever you're, so you trap, they throw it out. Most of the time, unless you just have a terrible trap, most of the time it's going to be a pop fly pass out. So are you sprinting off the trap back to the paint? Because then that enables you to kind of spray out and identify the threat from there.
Sorry, real quick, just what kind of vulnerabilities do you guys provide as a staff, right? So you're going back to your VIP program and your ability to kind of hand off leadership in ways that you feel are going to be more resourceful and those sorts of things. What kind of day-to-day stuff, as far as vulnerabilities as staff members, are you providing to kind of create that comfortability within the room and those sorts of things? Obviously, it stems, like you say, from who you bring into the program, but are you intentional about as a staff or even as an individual?
I wish I had like a perfect answer to it. I'll say this, like we do a lot of education. And so that is leaving articles in their lockers, appointing guys to talk through articles, showing 60-minute segments in the film room. So there's a lot of education to it. And then in addition to that, one thing Coach Amaker does is at the end of every time we meet as a team, he just says, anybody got anything? Players, managers, staff members, trainers, coaches, we fool around about it because he does it every time. But it's actually a really good thing for in my opinion, 2 reasons. One, it makes everybody feel like they're part of it. And so even if you're the sophomore manager and you got something to say, then you say it. And that's kind of creating the environment. So it makes people feel part of it. And then the second thing is it really encourages players to have a voice. Like if you have a terrible practice and he says that and no one's got anything, that's a bigger problem than the bad practice. Does that make sense? And so we're trying to create environments all the time but it's just what we do, so that's from literally the very first team meeting, he's doing that, saying that, and opening the floor. So that, I think that's probably the biggest thing. And really, like, let's be honest, like, when does that ever go bad? I mean, like, yeah, maybe I can think of like once in 4 years at Harvard. And again, we got great guys, staff, where somebody said something that I was like, I wish he hadn't said that. Or, but I mean, I'll take that ratio any day of the week, given the amount of positive discussion and conversation we've had as a result of it.
So I had a question. We're going to be smaller this year. So, I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on rebounding. And, everybody's played pickup ball and they say, hey, leave that guy open. He can't shoot or what have you. And I've seen this concept in the NBA. Draymond Green called it a gimmick defense. When they left him open, he just missed a bunch of threes. What are your feelings on that concept?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'll ignore the ethical part of it in terms of doing that, to like at the middle school and elementary school level, because I would probably have an issue there, although I've never coached at that level. So speaking purely from a basketball strategy standpoint, I absolutely would do that. Because at the end of the day, my feeling is this, and I find this, I've done this. Mike Winans is our video coordinator, is on this call right now, so he'll probably laugh at this. But, I find myself when I'm delivering a scouting report, a kid could be 2 for 27 from 3, and I'll put on the scouting report, capable 3-point shooter. And as I say it, I'm like, you sound like a moron. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The kid, I could make a 3 at the Division I level if left wide open, but that's not really what the guy does. I'm saying that to say, I think sometimes we do things as coaches to kind of cover for ourselves, to make ourselves feel better, that I told you he could make one, when in reality, that's not the best way to win the game. If you've got a kid that you're playing against that's a 22% 3-point shooter, and yeah, I absolutely would just play off him. And if he hits the first one, I'd play off him again, because he's probably going to miss the second one. He makes the second one, I'd probably play off. In other words, you're always playing the numbers there. And so I have no problem philosophically shaming guys into shooting from a strategic standpoint. And you're seeing it at the NBA level. And again, let's be honest, even when you do that, you're still getting most likely a hand in his face, or because if the guy's not a high level 3-point shooter, it's not like he's catching it shot ready thinking it's going up. He's probably hesitating before he does. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but I have no issue with that. We just can't do it very often at our level, because in our league, literally every team can shoot the 3, 1 through 5. It's crazy. The Ivy League's just a very, very good outside shooting league. And so we just can't do it. There's only a couple teams, and what we do, they will not shoot threes. So for example, Princeton had a kid, really good player. I think he was all league this year, Richmond Iriraguzo, who's a non-3-point shooter. So we just played off him because it also disrupted some of their cutting action. So we'll do stuff like that, but he just is never even thinking to shoot threes. So he just never would try. Well, appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. And obviously everyone has my contact info. Please feel free to reach out. Happy to help in any way that I can. And it's awesome that you guys are doing this. I mean, we're all trying to learn, grow, get better, and ultimately help our kids and our team. So it's great to see everyone here.